On behalf of the Madison VA Hospital and Clinics, I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to be here today as we honor the newest member of our Hall of Heroes. I would especially like to welcome our honored guests, the family of Thomas Renault. My name is Paul Rickert. I am a 22-year Army combat veteran and will serve as your Master of Ceremonies for this Hall of Heroes induction ceremony. We will open today's ceremony with a presentation of colors provided by the UW-Madison Army ROTC. Please rise. Please remain standing if you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for an invocation by Chaplain Fischel. Chaplain.
We pause for a moment to invite you in your spirit to be here amongst us as we commemorate and remember the life and deeds of this brave man. We ask your blessing on this Hall of Heroes induction ceremony, on Thomas's family and friends, and on this community. We thank you for giving us this day to come together at this special time to honor Thomas Renault. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Apologies for the mic issues. Next up, we'll have Mrs. Jennifer Hall providing some background on the Hall of Heroes.
You may be seated. Good afternoon. We'd like to welcome you today to the 2019 Hall of Heroes induction ceremony.
A hero is a person who is admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. While all of the veterans that come to the William S. Middleton Memorial Veterans Hospital have demonstrated sacrifice and courage on behalf of our country, there are some who stand out for especially heroic actions during their service. The Hall of Heroes is where we honor such veterans. Located on the main floor of the hospital near the Patient Education Resource Center, we honor veterans that have been patients at the William S. Middleton Memorial Veterans Hospital who have served with valor during their military service to the United States of America. We are proud to honor these veterans who stand out as heroes.
In 2002, Dr. John Hoffer, the then Chief of Dentistry, began the Hall of Heroes program at the William S. Middleton Memorial Hospital. His idea was to honor the veterans in the Madison area whose military service was especially heroic. Since the initial ceremony, the program has inducted 10 veterans representing 4 different branches of service with various awards including the Distinguished Service Cross, Navy Cross, Distinguished Flying Cross, Silver Star, Bronze Star, and the Purple Heart. Thomas will join the following distinguished veterans into the Hall of Heroes, 2 of whom are with us today. Private First Class James Anagnostopoulos, Sergeant Robert Botts, Sergeant Joshua C. Brennan, Sergeant David G. Brenzel, Sergeant Harry S. Dickerson, Second Lieutenant James A. Duncan, Captain Donald L. Heiliger, Second Lieutenant James S. Morgan, Corporal James L. Stevenson, and Private First Class Ralph J. Warner. We are very honored to be recognizing Thomas's heroism and celebrating his induction into the Hall of Heroes today.
Thank you, Jennifer. I would now like to introduce our Hospital Associate Director, Mrs. Christine Kleckner.
Good afternoon. The Hall of Heroes is our way here at the Madison VA Hospital to honor and recognize local veterans and service members who have served their country in wartime. These servicemen and women have been awarded military decorations for valor, heroism, and specific combat actions. It serves as a reminder of what our courageous veterans have endured and reminds us of the sacrifices that they have made. The Hall of Heroes reminds our employees of the VA's mission to fulfill President Lincoln's promise to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan. By serving and honoring the men and women who are America's veterans, the Hall of Heroes is an inspiration to all of us here at the Madison VA Hospital. My Life, My Story is a VA program that interviews veterans or their family members about veterans' life stories. It is a program that shines light on veterans' individual life stories in hopes of honoring their service, which leads to a better rapport with patients and overall better care. Both David Renault and Monica Rodriguez shared Thomas's stories with our My Life, My Story program coordinator, Thor Ringler. Today, we would like to honor the memory of Thomas's heroism as we induct him into our Hall of Heroes. It is a special day for Thomas's family. As we recognize his induction into the Hall of Heroes, we want to thank Thomas's family, friends, and all of you for being here today for this celebration. At this time, I'd like to ask Thor to come up and share with us the My Life, My Story of Thomas Renault.
Thanks, Christine, and thank you all for being here today. Thomas Renault grew up in Beloit, Wisconsin. His father, Jesse, was a mechanic. His mom, Frances, was active with her church and many other organizations. He had one sister, Peggy. His cousin, David Renault, remembers how he was always interested in the military. He was all Army, all the time. Even when we were kids, that's all he used to talk about, ever since I could remember. I lived in Milwaukee, so I didn't see him that often. When he did visit with his parents, he would have his bag of toy soldiers, little green plastic guys. He would bring those along and spread them on my mother's living room floor and play with them. Years later, Tommy and David would both serve in the Army in Vietnam from 1967 to 1968. Tommy was a tank commander with the 25th Infantry Division, 3-Quarter Cavalry Regiment near Cu Chi. David was a Sergeant E5 with USA Stratcom at the Phu Lam Signal Battalion. They were stationed only a few miles apart. David recalls, "I knew Tommy was in Vietnam, but I had no idea where. One day I was out on a courier run. When I got back, the guys told me that my cousin Tom had been traveling by on a convoy and stopped to look for me. A couple weeks later, he sent me a letter that he had been looking for me and was sorry that we missed each other. It wasn't the only letter that Tommy wrote while he was in Vietnam. On October 28, 1967, in a letter to his father, he wrote about some of the events that we'll be hearing about today. Dear Dad, perhaps that was quite a feat my crew and I did the night of 12th September. By no means do I intend to make a habit of it. Dad, that night I happened to be in the wrong place at the right time. I was in a place that night where I had to fight for my life, so I did. Dad, I did stand tall on that tank. I saw the fire start across the rear of the tank. I saw the 2 rounds hit the left side, one of which went through the hull into the left fuel tank. I saw the fire start down the left side of the tank. Seeing all of this, I was scared. But I made up my mind I was going to stay and fight because I knew God was with me and I knew God would tell me when to go off the tank. So I stayed until that time, fighting. The feat that Tommy was writing about was one that would earn him a Silver Star and a Bronze Star for the other 3 men in his tank crew, Thomas McBurdy, Larry Dennison, and Charles George. On the night of September 12, 1967, their tank was in a column of armored personnel carriers whose mission was to search for Viet Cong elements operating at night along Highway 1 from Cu Chi to Trong Bang. 5 kilometers southeast of Trong Bang, the Viet Cong sprung their ambush with rockets, small arms, automatic weapons, and grenades. In an interview for the 25th Infantry Division newspaper, Tropic Lightning News, Tommy recalled the attack. We were the first to get hit, and immediately George and Dennison swung the turret around and started firing the 90mm. We took 5 more RPG-2s, one of which knocked out the electrical system. We had to elevate and traverse the turret by hand. We got off a dozen rounds, but the heat got too much for us. Small arms ammo stored in cans at the rear of the turret started popping, so we had to get out. Within 24 hours, Thomas Renault was promoted to Staff Sergeant and received a Silver Star. McBrearty, Dennison, and George received Bronze Stars with V devices for valor. The 25th Division Commander, Major General F.K. Mearns, presented the medals saying, "A crew that would stay in a flaming tank and man the main gun, getting off a dozen rounds, is doing something that takes one hell of a lot of guts." Tommy stayed in the Army after returning from Vietnam and retired in 1985. While he was busy with active duty military service, he did find time to stay connected with his family at home. His niece, Monica Rodriguez, recalls some memories of Thomas. "My sister and I lived in Beloit for a couple years when we were younger, and we got to see him every summer. He would bring his big old box of toys for us in the summertime. No expense was spared. We always had a good time. That was our Christmas with Uncle Tom." Growing up, my mom and him had not had a good relationship. He was 4 years older, and when he went overseas, they got more distant. But as they both got older, my mom and Uncle Tom really developed a relationship, especially after he got out of the military. Tom's big thing was always trains. He amassed a huge train collection up until the day he died. He had a huge setup in my grandparents' basement, a whole little city with all of his trains, models, and everything. He spent hours and hours down there. When we were kids, we would go down there, but we couldn't play with him if he wasn't there. Of course, we'd go downstairs and play with him anyway, but we knew better than to break anything. He was very proud of his military service, but that comes with all the dark things after going through Vietnam. He never really talked about it. I don't think he ever really talked about it with anyone. He had medical issues, including PTSD. When I was a kid, I didn't realize it, but when I got older, I did. He had some very serious episodes. I know he struggled with it. Uncle Tom was a Bears fan his whole life. I don't know where that came from. I'm a Green Bay Packer fan, but he loved those wretched old Bears. We always bonded over that. It was our tradition. Even on the Sundays when we weren't playing each other, I'd call him and say, "Your Bears suck." And he'd call me and say, "Look at those Bears, they're horrible." We'd go back and forth all day that way. We did this every Sunday up until he died. I'll always remember that day. The Packers were playing the Bears. We beat them, and I called and kept leaving messages. I was talking a whole bunch of crap, but he never called back. By the time Tom retired from the Army, he'd received more medals, a dozen of them, including a Purple Heart, Meritorious Service Medal, and the Army Commendation Medal. But he was always a humble hero. When he was interviewed after receiving the Silver Star, he didn't talk about himself, but his crew. The greatest thing was the Major General coming down here to see us. I felt wonderful when he let me pin the awards on my crew. Years later, in 1996, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame at his alma mater, Beloit Memorial High School. At that ceremony, he said, "There are safer ways to make a mark in life. I feel humbled that I was selected for this honor." Thank you.
Thank you, Thor. All right. Now I'd like to invite Jay Renault up to say a few words and read a letter Thomas wrote to his mother regarding his heroism. The letter can be found in your program.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for coming today. On behalf of our family, we really do appreciate you coming out today. My name's Jay Renault, and I'm humbled to be up here today, actually. I am Tom's cousin, third removed cousin. And back 10 years ago, I had a dream about inducting Tom or getting Tom into the hallway of heroes. And it's 2010, and we're accomplishing that mission today. So, really? So, I didn't know Tom that well. There's a big age difference between us all and everything, but Tom would come over to my dad and mom and dad's house all the time and chat with them and have a beer. And, you know, we would go back and forth about the Marine Corps and the Army, because he was in the Army, and of course he wasn't quite up to the standard of the Marine Corps, but we would go back and forth with each other about that. You know, and one thing he never, you know, he used to talk about the Madison VA hospital and telling me that I should get there. You know, they've got great health care in the Madison VA, and at that time I didn't realize, you know, I wasn't utilizing the VA health care. Lo and behold, years later, here I am, I'm working at the VA hospital, and I do get my health care at the VA hospital, so he was right about a couple things. Yeah, so anyway, you know, Tom never ever tooted his own whistle like they were saying earlier. He never talked about the war, never talked about any of this stuff. I didn't know any of this until I was an employee at the VA hospital. I was walking by and somebody from the travel department, I believe they were from, he said, "Is this your, you know, are you related to this person?" I said, "Well, yeah, it's my cousin." And he said, "Do you have any idea what he did?" And I had no idea until I read what he had done in Vietnam, and I was like, that's when the bell went off. I said, you know what, I'm gonna work as hard as I can to have him, you know, put on the hallway of heroes, because the accomplishments that he's done should be honored, and they are honored. And I want to thank the administration, the hospital administration, and the committee of Hallway of Heroes for making that happen. You said you didn't want to get up here because you're going to get emotional, and here I am starting. But this is not right. Yeah. So anyway, I want to read the letter that Tom wrote to his mom. And I'll get through this one. Dear Mom, I've got something to tell you. I feel you should know. The night of the 12th, about 8:15 p.m., my platoon, the first platoon, was hit by Viet Cong ambush. We had a tank in the lead, APCs, and 2 tanks at the end. The tank commander I commanded was the very last tank. The lead tank was fired at with RPG-7, an anti-tank weapon, but was missed. Then fire started coming from both sides of the road we were on. Mom, I don't want you to get all upset and worried, so I'm not going to tell you the rest of what happened. I will tell you this. Because of what I did, I was promoted to the rank of Staff Sergeant E6 by Commanding General of the division. Personally, I also received the Silver Star, the nation's second highest military award, and my crew received the Bronze Star, the nation's 4th highest award. So I guess you may say we were heroes in a way. The tank commander of the tank in front of me that night wrote up an eyewitness report of what happened that night. When I get a copy of the report, I will send it to you. Don't worry, Mom. My men and myself got off the tank and to safety. Okay. Mom, your prayers and everyone's prayers timely were answered that night. I say a little prayer that night before I went out, as I usually do, smile. Well, Mom, I may just as well tell you that what happened, the tank was hit 5 times, caught fire, but we stayed and fought until the last minute. But before we had to leave the tank, we were able to get out 9 of the 12 90mm main gun rounds at the Viet Cong. In all, the platoon killed 10 Viet Cong. The crew of V-15, my tank, was given credit for killing 3 of the 10 Viet Cong. Just as we got off the tank, it started to blow up. So now you know what happened. Love always, Tom. Again, I just want to thank you very much for being here today and sharing this with us. It does mean a lot to the family and that, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. At this time, we would like to formally induct Thomas A. Renault into the William S. Middleton Memorial Veterans Hospital Hall of Heroes. While serving in the Army, Thomas earned many awards, including the Silver Star, Bronze Star, and Purple Heart. His plaque will be placed in the Hall of Heroes next to other valorous veterans. The Hall of Heroes is located on the first floor next to the Patient Education and Resource Center. We would also now like to present a memorial gift to Thomas's family members that helped make this possible. Christine Kleckner, if you could come to the stage. I would first like to thank Jay Renault for being here and sharing Thomas's story. Jay, if you could come forward. Next, I would like to thank Monica Rodriguez for submitting Thomas's application and sharing her memories with all of us to learn more about Thomas. Monica, if you could come forward. And finally, I would like to thank Robert Renault for taking the time to be with us today and sharing in this event. Robert, if you could come forward. I would now like to invite Chaplain Fischel back up to the podium to perform the benediction.
Today we got to hear about a particular light that shone bright in a man that we know and we have come to know as Thomas Renault. And so the benediction today, I would like to share the words of James Morrison, and the title is Share Your Glorious Light with the World. Please receive this benediction. Within each of our hearts, there is a most glorious light. Go forth and let its spark help you understand what troubles both you and others. Go forth and let its light of reason be your guide in your decision-making. Go forth and bring its ray of hope to those in need of help in both body and spirit, that they too may find healing. Go forth and fan the flames of passion to help heal our world. Go forth and spread the warm glow of love, pushing back the darkness of this world. Go forth and share your glorious light with the world. Go forth. Go forth. Go forth. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. That concludes our ceremony. We would like to welcome you to enjoy some cake and refreshments outside the auditorium at this time. Thank you.